Genesis chapter 12, verses 4 through 20 is the text that I'm going to comment on today. It's basically the account of Abram, his wife and half-sister Sarai, and Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt. Here we see Abram obeying God. Again, that's faith here is trust and allegiance. So I'm trusting at your word and I'm giving my allegiance, my loyalty to you. So Abram obeys by leaving all his family and going to the land that God would show him. God fulfills his promise, shows the land. Abram, this is what I'm going to give to you and really to the nation that's going to come from you. This is the origin of the term promised land. If you're familiar with the nation of Israel being referred to as the promised land in some way. Abram, he builds an altar at the place that God shows him this, which is at a tree. He worships God, and then he moves to another area of the land, repeats the building of an altar, and worships there again. And altars were a symbol of connection with God. And so we could be tempted to think, okay, Abram, you're in the promised land, smooth sailing from here. No, famine strikes. A test of the promises of God and Abraham's trust in those promises. And Abram, when the famine comes, he goes to Egypt. Now, was he supposed to? Was this right or wrong? He should have stayed in the land. We don't have God directing him to Egypt. And so I'm not sure, but I think the connotation of the text and the overall biblical narrative does suggest that, because he goes to Egypt, which is going to be, as we continue forward, a place that symbolizes bondage, slavery, particularly slavery to sin as we go forward into the New Testament. So Abram's taken matters into his own hands, and out of fear, he lies about his wife. And so Sarai is described as a sister, taken into the harem of Pharaoh, and God intervenes. Why does God intervene? It's about the line of promise. He'd promised a nation to descend from Abram. And Abram's married to Sarai. If Sarai's taken away, it jeopardizes the promise. God intervenes. Despite Abram's failure to trust, to act in allegiance to God, God takes care of things. Pharaoh, in this case, he acts more nobly than Abram. But again, the key is God intervenes to protect the fulfillment of his promise. So, the thought for today. How encouraging is it to know that God's promises depend on his faithfulness, not yours? Now, we've got to be careful here. That doesn't mean that we can go ahead and live how we want and do what we want and just expect God to take care of things. No, many of God's promises are conditional on our trust and allegiance. But notice the blessing that God gave Abram in verses 1 through 3 was not that conditional. God's faithful. How can that motivate you to greater loyalty to God today? May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you today. And today, would you know his peace? God bless.